Now, one of the more devastating outcomes of World War II was the Nazi policy of the mass extermination of the Jews in what became known as the Holocaust. And in this video, we're going to look at why it happened and its results. So when Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany, he made no attempt to hide the racialist motivations that drove his actions. You see, Hitler came to find great comfort in the fact that modern Germans were the descendants of an ancient group of Germanic-speaking peoples known as the Aryans. To Hitler and the rest who thought like him, the Aryans were the master race of the earth, and thus the master race ought to claim its place of ascendancy in the world. And Hitler trained his mind to believe that the most virulent threat to the flourishing of the modern master race was the Jewish population of Europe. And so once Hitler had come to power, he began implementing policies to establish this new racial order. And so starting in 1935, Hitler's anti-Jewish policies were mild compared to what they would later become. The first major iteration of this plan came in the form of the Nuremberg Laws, which put Hitler's racialist ideology into law. The first law established that only people of pure German blood could be citizens, and thus Jews were stripped of their citizenship. The second law made it illegal for pure-blood Germans to intermarry with Jews. And then in 1939, Hitler's policies shifted towards Jewish emigration. Remember, emigration is when people leave a country, immigration is when people come into a country. Now, the most robust plan coming out of this idea was to ship all the Jews to the African island of Madagascar. However, when World War II started, Hitler no longer had the time or attention to manage the complexities of his Jewish emigration plans, and that's when things turned much darker. In 1942, something called the Wannsee Conference was held, in which Nazi leaders Reinhard Heydrich, Heinrich Himmler, and Hitler articulated what became known as the final solution to the Jewish problem. And the final solution was not the emigration of Jews, but rather their complete extermination. Now, even before the Wannsee Conference, the Nazis had been building death camps to put Jews to death. And to be fair, it wasn't only Jews, and we'll talk more about those other groups in a moment. Now, the death camps, the most notorious of which were Auschwitz and Dachau, were the Nazis' way of systematizing and making more efficient the process of mass extermination. So essentially, whenever Germany occupied a territory in the war, they rounded up all the Jews in that area, packed them tightly into train cars, and then shipped them to the death camps. Once they arrived, each one of them had a brief medical examination. About 20 to 30% of them, mostly men, were sent to work in the camp on behalf of the German war effort, and the other 70 to 80% were murdered shortly thereafter. The group who did not make the cut were told that they would be showered and deloused. So they were made to remove their clothes and then forced into a massive concrete box with shower heads. Sometimes they understood what was happening and they resisted, but other times they did not. But once they arrived in that box, the doors were closed and it was pumped full of hydrogen cyanide, and 5 minutes later, they were dead. And in this way, around 6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazis. And Hitler's dedication to this atrocity was so great that the transportation of Jews to the death camps always took priority on the rail lines, even if there was a desperate need on the war front. Now, in addition to the Jews, Nazis targeted other groups for extermination as well, and as a result, another 4 to 5 million people were killed in addition to the Jews. The Roma people were also judged to be an inferior race, and for that, although the number is debated, up to 1.5 million of them were exterminated. Additionally, the Nazis targeted homosexuals and Slavic people and people with disabilities to be killed in the death camps. Alright, that's it. If you need more help with Unit 8, click right here. Thanks for sticking with me through this difficult video, and I will see you in the next one.